That's what we're working on.
Okay.
I mean,
What I'll do.
yeah, I don't like,
That was, I'm just having a hard time getting on get it on at all.
yeah, I don't like the email system. I'm still being invited for two-factor authentication. And I don't know how to,
Well, maybe we need to have IT come and.
Yeah.
work with all of us. If that's what we do. Okay. Tonight's meeting is being recorded and live streamed. Counselors, please make sure your microphone is on, and mine is not, so it is now. I will call the July 8th City Council meeting to order at 6:36. Please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance.
allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, we have Mayor Bell,
Here.
Counselor Bowman,
Present.
Engelbretson. Here. Lyman. Myers.
Here.
Smith.
Here.
And Wells.
Here.
There is a quorum.
Thank you very much. Under mayor's comments, I'll keep it brief. I will just say, number one, thank you for all being here and being prepared and for getting through the mountain of work that we have to do each meeting. This is a difficult time for everybody. I was just reading a New York Times article, and there were mayors from all over the United States that were being interviewed and talking about the financial difficulties that they are facing in their cities. Most of them were large cities, and they were very diverse across the United States. So I say this, I think, every time. We're not alone in feeling like there's just not quite enough dollars to stretch for everything that we need to do. I'd also like to say we're very fortunate here in the Willamette Valley. I think about the floods in Texas five days ago and how drastic and devastating those were, and my heart absolutely goes out to all of those folks. So I'm very thankful that we live here, and I'm very thankful that you're all part of the community and willing to serve the community. And sometimes a thankless job. So thank you. I will thank you. That's all that I'm going to say tonight. Sammy, are there any proposed changes to the agenda?
Yes, Mayor, in your red folder, you guys will have a copy of the presentation that we are going to get on agenda item number 3. There's also the city administrator report and the PD report, quarterly update. Then agenda item number 10, the financial report, will be presented in September, so it's being pulled tonight.
Okay. Thank you. Public comment. Is there anyone signed up to speak tonight?
Not tonight.
And the consent agenda. Counselors, you could remove any item from the consent agenda for discussion by requesting such action prior to consideration. Have you all had a chance to take a look at the minutes for June 10th and June 24th? Anyone have any changes or requests for anything to be removed for separate consideration? If
not, I will entertain a motion to accept.
I move to accept the consent agenda as presented.
Second,
A motion by Counselor Engebretson and a second by Counselor Bowman to approve the consent agenda without amendments. All those in favor, say aye.
aye.
Opposed? Hearing none. The motion passes 6-0. Okay, next item on the agenda is a special guest, and that's a representative from Lane Transit District who is going to give us really good news, right?
News, I'd say neutral news.
Sorry, I should introduce you, but I don't know your name.
Sure. Do I need to push the button on here? It's gone. All right. Well, I'll go ahead and start and introduce myself. So
All
good
right.
evening, Mayor Bell and Coburg City Councilors. My name is Dave Roth and I'm the Director of Mobility Planning and Policy with Lane Transit District.
Welcome,
And
Mr.
I'm really happy to be here tonight. Counselor Bauman, it's good to see you again. I think we had a Zoom call about 6 or 7 months ago with Jameson Otten at LTD. So nice to see you again.
Good to see you. The presentation has been a long time in the making, but I'm happy we got it to this point.
Good. Yeah. So Jameson Otten, our CEO, was unable to make it tonight, but I've been joining him on some of our conversations with city councils outside of sort of the Eugene Springfield area. So again, really happy to be here and to meet with you tonight. So I have a brief presentation that I'll go through and just give you a bit of information about LTD, some of the initiatives we're working on right now, and then we can have an opportunity for a conversation. So with that, I'll go ahead and get started. So next slide, please. So the agenda for the presentation tonight is to talk a little bit about some numbers within our annual impact report. So we're updating this right now, and we'll have a new one of these available at our State of the District event, which is going to happen this October at the Jacqua Center at the U of O. So we'll do that. We'll talk about our system review project, which is a project that we completed last fall. And this looked at our all of our services that we provide, and really was looking for opportunities to make some minor changes to services, not a full network redesign or anything like that, but what were some of the short-term changes that we could make that were really revenue neutral, and then some longer-term changes that we could make if we saw additional funding and resources. And I'll talk a little bit about Route 96, which is specific, obviously, to Coburg, that project. I'll talk a bit about our mobility management framework and what that means to the district and our agency partners. And then finally, an upcoming project that I'm really excited about, which is our Connect 2045 long-range mobility plan, which will set the 20-year vision for LTD services going forward. And we're just about to initiate that project. So we'll go ahead to the next slide. We usually start with our mission, vision, values. So just to share, our mission is to connect our community. The vision is in all that we do. We're committed to creating a more connected, sustainable, and equitable community through our services and programs. And values are respect, integrity, innovation, equity, safety, and collaboration. Next slide. And one more slide and we'll jump right into the numbers. So actually, before I go into these numbers, just quickly a history of LTD. So LTD as a special district was formed in 1970, and we've been providing services as Lane Transit District since that time. We started out with 18 buses. We have just over 100 buses today in our fleet. In 1985, we were the first transit agency to become fully accessible, and this was before ADA requirements were put in place in 1990. So we're really proud of that history. During 1990s, we saw a lot of growth in our facilities. We built a lot of stations throughout the metro area to sustain that growth. 1998 saw the completion of the downtown Eugene station, which is important because that is really the center of our system and the way our network works. It's a hub and spoke design. So virtually all of our routes are coming and going from Eugene station in the region. During the 2000s, we saw the planning and implementation of the MX system, which was completed in 2017. That comprises 13 miles of bus rapid transit with 37 stations. And around that time, this is pre-COVID, we peaked at about 9 million trips annually. That's pretty significant. We're not there right now, as with all transit agencies. Very large hit during and coming out of COVID. So we're well below that now. And then some of the more recent innovations and things that we've been up to is we brought on a significant portion of battery electric buses to our fleet. And we also implemented our Touch Pass system, which is a card for folks to use their monthly passes. Just a little bit of history. So in terms of the numbers I mentioned, we have just over 100 buses. 58 of those are hybrid battery and diesel. 30 are electric. That's a very high ratio compared to other transit agencies of battery electric buses, one of the highest in the nation right now. And then the remainder of our buses are renewable diesel. So we run those on renewable diesel with very low emissions. Our ridership in 23-24, when this report was put out, we were at 6.2 million trips annually. So as I said, it's below our peak of around 6 million. But we are seeing growth coming out of COVID, and that's what we really like to see, is the ridership returning. So some additional numbers here. We've got 14,000 student passes that we distribute K through 12, 9,000 plus honored riders, which are older adults, and then over 2,000 half fare eligible riders. In terms of employment, we've got 255 frontline workers in service delivery, and then over 70 in administration. And survey results from our annual customer satisfaction survey is 75% of respondents believe that we provide value. Next slide. Accessibility and paratransit. So,
Mr. Roth?
yes,
Can I
absolutely.
ask a question?
Yeah.
What constitutes half fare? How do you decide who's?
So our half fare eligible.
Based?
Well, we do provide income-based programs, and they're eligible for the half fare. We partner with non-governmental organizations to do eligibility and income verification, those sorts of things for those riders. Yeah.
Thank you.
So accessibility and paratransit. In terms of ADA paratransit service, in terms of total miles annually, nearly 1 million miles annually that we're providing, with over 110,000 ADA paratransit trips. And this is through our Ride Source service, which is paratransit and NEMT services. That's non-emergent medical transportation. This is a really important service, obviously, and in most cases, this operates within 3/4 miles of our fixed route system. However, there are exceptions, and we talked about this with Councilor Bowman when we spoke. We do not provide paratransit NEMT to Coburg, and the reason for that is because the Route 96 is considered a commuter service, because it only has 2 trips per day, one in the morning and one in the evening. And so according to FTA regulations, that's not considered eligible for the paratransit service. So yeah.
Mr. If I can ask a question, what's the closest Ride Source gets to Coburg in terms of geographic distance?
You might stump me on this one. I might have to look at my map and tell you.
Sorry, didn't mean to stump
Yeah,
you.
no, that's great. It's probably somewhere around Chad Drive. I'd say it's probably the number 12, Chad Drive and Game Farm, sort of in that
Okay.
area is sort of where the boundary stops. And I don't have the exact boundary map with me, but it's.
That's That's good to know for the community, so they know where they have to go if they do need to utilize it.
Okay, next slide. This is a map of our district boundary. So, you know, what the district boundary means is that this is where we collect payroll tax to fund our services. And our board members have 7 wards within the district represent. All right, next slide. Now I'm going to talk about the system review project, so we can go ahead and jump in this. So why would we conduct a system review? Number one, things changed a lot during the pandemic, and obviously ridership was one of those big changes. Ridership plummeted for a variety of reasons. Health and safety was one of the most significant ones early on, but people's travel behavior also changed, and that was driven by a change in how we work. Largely, people went to more remote work situations where they were not going into the office nearly as much, and so they didn't need transportation or transit services. So that ridership dropped, and some of those trends have stuck. You know, we've seen a return to office in some cases, but still travel behavior and work habits have changed a lot, and that stuck. So travel is different now. Staffing shortages. So we lost a lot of staff during COVID, a lot of our service delivery staff, and so that's been one of the big challenges that we've faced, is building that workforce back to bring in more skilled operators. And these are very skilled positions with requiring a lot of training and certifications. So bringing those people back has been a challenge.
Those are your drivers.
Yep, vehicle operators. Yep, absolutely. And then service levels, we cut our service significantly during COVID, and we wanted to determine the best path forward to start adding service back coming out of COVID. So it provides a roadmap on how to, like I said, how to build back service that was reduced after 2020, and then matching that service to how people's travel needs have evolved. Next slide. So the data that we looked at for this project, we looked at ridership and connections for every route. So how are people using our services? We looked at fall 2022 travel patterns, and we were using self aggregate data to learn where people were going and how they were using our services. We looked at population and employment data. So where are the jobs moving to, those sorts of things, socioeconomic data, future growth projections and plans. So thinking about where cities are seeing development, where, you know, urban growth boundaries might be expanding, those sorts of things, where housing was going. And then we also conducted significant public engagement throughout the process. So this summarizes some of our outreach. So we conducted user and community surveys. We did onboard surveys on our buses. We had multiple web surveys. We went out and tabled at a lot of events. We held specific meetings with specific groups. And throughout that process, you know, we started in the fall of 23. Ultimately, we landed on a final set of recommendations that we took to our strategic planning committee for their review and approval prior to taking it to the board for their final sign off and approval. And it was approved in October of 24. Next slide. So just a little bit more detail on the outreach and engagement. So again, we did onboard surveys. We had over 2,400 responses. The community survey, over 1,000 responses. This is just an image of what that onboard survey looks like. This is the some of the engagement activities. So not only were we engaging the community, we're also engaging with our operators, our frontline staff, understanding the challenges that they are seeing. They're sort of the eyes and ears of the agency out on the front line, talking to neighborhood groups, local and regional agency partner feedback, targeted low-income and non-English speaking efforts as well. So the final recommendations and outreach, once we had a draft set of recommendations, we put that back out for some additional outreach, including with our strategic planning committee, and modified some of the recommendations that were then developed into the final set of recommendations. And you'll see an acronym there. I apologize. The COCA is the Comprehensive Outreach and Communications Assessment project, and I don't have detail on that in here, but I'll just say that this was another concurrent project that was happening where LTD really took a close look at how we do communications and engagement, and worked with a community steering council to put together a framework for how we do engagement. I think me being here tonight is sort of reflective of that effort. And we have really good guidance now on how we do engagement outreach on, on a regular basis, just to be in touch with people, but also on project level efforts. So anyway, just a little bit of an aside there. Next slide. More on outreach. So hundreds of touch points with people out in the communities we serve, over 150 responses to the online survey. One of the things that we heard loud and clear that sort of rose to the top was what people wanted to see was more frequency. Really, that's what transit is all about. If you want transit to be an option, a viable option for people, not only does it need to go where you need to go, but it has to come frequently enough that you shouldn't have to plan around it so much to have it be really effective for folks. So that was one of the things that we really heard loud and clear, and that we're focusing was to try to increase our frequency of our routes. We can go ahead to the next slide here. So in terms of the recommended service changes, the goals are, again, to improve frequency, to reduce route duplication. So where we have routes, I'll stop and answer a question. Yeah.
To your point there, frequency, what's the occupancy per trip?
Across the board or specific?
Just across the board. I mean,
I couldn't
if
give
it's
you-
low, then you wouldn't need more frequency.
Well, on the counterpoint to that is if the ridership is low, the reason for that might be that it's not frequent enough, that you're not providing the service that people need. So they're just not using it. So sort of, I did sort of scan some of the numbers from the system review for Route 96, which comes out here twice a day, once very early in the morning and once in the evening. It looked like around 10 passengers per day, roughly during the weekday.
Capacity is
On a bus, fully packed 40-foot bus, I think is around 60 people. That's standing room only though. So that's not optimal either. So somewhere kind of in the middle would be better. So again, reducing route duplication. So if we have routes that are really close to each other or they're overlapping in some way, we want to try to reduce that because that's duplicative service and it's not efficient way to provide service. We also are currently now we're adding back weekend service as well. So this is one of the big changes coming out of COVID. Prior to COVID, the way that people used transit, there was less weekend ridership typically, and there were big peaks, and it was really tied to commuter travel. So you'd have a big peak in the morning, a big peak in the evening, and then lower weekend service. Coming out of COVID, the way people use transit, the way people travel is very different. And the peakiness is sort of reduced, so that gets spread out across the day more. Those peaks aren't quite as high. And then there's more demand to ride on the weekends. So we're trying to be responsive to that and think about how we design our routes and our services to line up with that better. And then finally, extending service to new high density growth areas. So you see this in particular in Eugene right now, but also in Springfield. So sort of out by Bob Straub, there's a lot of development activity out there. In Eugene, it's sort of out in West Eugene, we're seeing a lot of multifamily housing out there. And so some of the recommendations are responsive to that growth and trying to connect to those new development areas. So the recommendations are set into sort of two categories. We have short-term recommendations, and these are things that we can do now essentially that don't require a lot of additional resources, in particular funding. A lot of them do require more operators though. So that's the one struggle that we're having is continuing to find enough operators to deliver the service. The long-term recommendations may require additional dollars to provide that service. In some cases, they might require capital improvements from the roadway owners themselves that we will have to partner with them. And those types of projects just take longer to. So short-term recommendations are sort of in that 3-year time frame. So we're right in the middle of following these recommendations from this. The long-term recommendations are more like 3+ years out. So next slide. So I wanted to just provide a slide on the route today that serves Coburg, which is the 96. So this provides a trip in the morning, a trip in the evening during weekdays and Saturdays with no Sunday service. The recommendations here, the text that you see is from the system review final plan, which is available on our website. And it recommends no changes in the short term. However, in the long term, when we have additional operators available, we'd like to add an additional weekday trip at least. So that's our goal within the next 2 to 3 years is to get one more trip going on the 90s. And then this is the route map from Eugene Station to. So I'm happy to, pause here if there's any questions about the system review project, or we can sort of continue through the presentation and then again have time for discussion at the end.
Are you highly profitable, moderately profitable, or losing money?
Transit is not profitable. Our fare box recovery rate or ratio of our overall budget, which is available on our budget, which we just passed, about 4%. So we rely very heavily on payroll tax, both at the local level through our district as well as the statewide level. You probably heard with the transportation package that's been discussed a lot. If you've been following that, there was a big conversation around a statewide transportation improvement fund, or the STIF program, about increasing the tax to provide to transit agencies. So we rely heavily on that, and as well federal dollars. So yeah, I think it's using the term profitable with transit is, it's profitable in the sense that we support people's mobility needs, and then that makes for thriving economies and thriving businesses. So I'll move on to the next topic, which is our mobility management framework approach. So this is a body of work that's been underway for a while, and if you follow transit, the transit industry at all, you may have heard this term before, but mobility management is really sort of thinking about non-personal automobile travel. So all of the different sort of options that are out there, and how transit agencies can play a role in supporting these different modes of travel through governance with partner agencies, through innovation, pilot projects, new types of service. So we have a service operating in Cottage Grove. It's called the Cottage Grove Connector, and it's a mobility on demand service. And that's sort of like the Uber or Lyft of transit, where you have an app and you can press a button and a vehicle will show up to pick you up. I'll talk a little bit about sort of our approach here, but there's a rapidly evolving mobility landscape. So there's a lot of new modes, and sort of this sort of started with the transportation network companies, which is the Uber and Lyfts, where we saw the introduction of these types of services, and that really changed how people were traveling. About 10, 12 years ago is when that sort of started. People's travel behaviors changed. I mentioned that earlier with the system review. There's increasing demand for flexible and integrated mobility. So for example, you know, if you think about a typical fixed route bus trip, how do you get to the bus? Are you walking to the station or the stop? Or are there other options? Would you maybe take an Uber to a downtown station to then continue your trip? Or in Eugene Springfield area, you might use bike share, or University of Oregon student might use bike share to get to a station. Is there a way to integrate those services so it's more seamless, easy experience for people to reduce the friction? So maybe you just have to pay once, or you can tap your card or your phone to start your trip on one mode and switch to another mode, but not have to continue tapping. So a lot of innovation in the sort of the technology and IT area here. The next bullet talks about uncertain federal funding landscape, and that's certainly more true now than ever for transit and mobility. So trying to be more efficient with use of funds with how we do our work. And then this last one, new form factors continuing to disrupt the public right of way. So I think this is referring to things like scooters and other, you know, who knows what's next. So next slide. So why do we want to sort of go down this path and think about mobility more comprehensively and beyond just, you know, typical 40-foot bus? So we want to broaden the impact of public mobility. We want to improve the ease, experience, and reach of transit to make it a great choice for people and just make it easier for people to use. Again, I mentioned connecting different modes, providing diverse options for all riders, including the most vulnerable populations, regardless of where they live. So this is really key for us right now, is to really think about how we, you know, connect both rural and urban areas with transit and mobility options. And then really to help reach, help impact social outcomes. So thinking about access to jobs, public health, affordability, housing, education, those sorts of things. How can we better connect people to those outcomes? Next slide. You can't see this very well, but this is a graphic that talks about sort of the current state and then sort of the future state of where we want to get to. And I'll just say right now, you know, if you're thinking about a non-personal vehicle travel mode, there are a lot of options out there, and they're not well connected right now. They're not integrated, and it's not easy to connect those. So really, that's what it comes down to, is to having a more organized, intentional approach to facilitate those different types of options. Next slide. I'll just say to realize the vision of this connected, sustainable, and equitable community, we're working on this framework. It's largely around governance and how we work with our partners and integrate technology, and we're calling that mobility management. We are piloting some initiatives. I mentioned the Cottage Grove Connector right now. The Eugene Springfield Bike Share, we're within the next couple of years, we'll likely be taking a larger role within the bike share system in the metro area. You may see a new fleet of electrified bikes that are connected in terms of fare payment with the transit system. So again, pay once, be able to go from a bike to a bus without having to worry about paying twice or overthinking it. And then this last one, we were awarded a federal grant through the ATTAIN program last October to provide a fairly large scale on-demand transit option in the Bethel School District. And we're hopeful this is still going to come through, but we're waiting on the feds to see if that still comes through. All right. So the last section of my presentation tonight is to talk about the Connect 2045 Long Range Mobility Plan. So this project will be the first major update. I'll even call it a rewrite of our existing long range transit plan, which was completed in 2014. So it's been over a decade since we've really taken the time to do a long range planning exercise for the agency. It's time to do it. And I think we're gonna get a lot of value out of this project. So this project was funded in part by an ODOT grant through the Transportation Growth Management Program, which you probably have heard about before. We're in the process right now. We've just selected a consultant and we're hoping to get this kicked off in the next couple months here. And you'll hear more from us once we start this project. So we'll be back to seek input from you and get you information about the future of LTD. So what did that say? Winter 2025
Yep.
kickoff? That was maybe a little ambitious. The TGM program is notorious for being very slow.
This December is still winter of 25.
Yeah, I know. I was just thinking about, does that still count? Yeah, December counts,
Sure,
right?
yeah.
So we're okay. We were hoping to start last. So what is a long-range mobility plan? So, it's a robust engagement process. So, this is larger than the system review project. This is really thinking about our goals and policies that we need to have in place to support the long-term vision for the agency. So this will give us a roadmap for our fixed route and our other mobility options, some of the things that I talked about tonight already, to serve the district and broader Lane County as well. The goals, policies, and recommended capital and programmatic investments will be contained in this plan, and they will inform, for example, our community investment plan, which is our version of a capital investment plan. And it will be the source for our future projects. And all right, so with that, I'll stop and I'm happy to answer any questions you may have.
Are there any discussions, and I think this goes back to Counselor Lyman's question about what is ridership in Coburg? So we think, well, 10 people on a big bus, that doesn't seem very cost effective. Are there discussions to have maybe smaller buses that run to some of our smaller communities?
Yeah, that's a great question. So I'll start off by just saying that the size of the vehicle itself is a very small part of the equation. I will say it is not very efficient to run large buses with very low numbers of people, but in terms of the cost part of the equation, it really is the labor cost that's the big driver. So that said, I think there are opportunities for us to right size our vehicles for some of our commuter routes or maybe our more rural routes, and to sort of think differently about our operating model with some of those routes. And the idea there would be to sort of put the right level of resource where it's needed. I'll also say, just thinking about Coburg specifically, I think it's one of those areas that we'll want to look at really closely for alternative service models. So like an on-demand type service could be something interesting for us to think about here as well. So that's something that the project, the long-range mobility plan, will be looking at specifically.
You do know the movie, if you build it, they will come.
Yes, exactly.
With transit, that's a good point, actually. But with transit, the critical part is getting the land use right as well. So you got to build the transit and the land use and have those really well coordinated. Yeah.
Is there any thought given to the fact that this bus comes to Coburg, but it's just on the main streets with new growth in the community, able to put a bus into some of the neighborhoods, put that as a part of the route to maybe increase ridership? Is that?
Yeah, no, I mean, those are the kinds of things that we want to look at is where's the growth happening in the communities that we serve, and are our routes well aligned with that? And if you're adding mileage to a route or adding more stops, that requires more time, and time is money. And so if, again, getting back to that service delivery model, it's possible that maybe an on-demand type service might be able to be, well, I don't know if I should say equivalent in terms of the cost to deliver the service, but maybe we can get close to the equivalent cost for a fixed route, but maybe have a larger service area that can hit. So we need to do that analysis and really understand the implications of it through that project.
Mr. Roth, what can we do as a smaller jurisdiction to really advocate for the service that you provide? To say to the folks above your layer, so to speak, please fund these opportunities, give them the tools that they need so they can help, serve the areas that are not being served as well as they should.
That's a great question. I think there's multiple avenues to do that. You're uniquely positioned as elected officials to, have those connections to our state legislators, our decision makers who are controlling the purse strings. And obviously the last to do that, the last couple weeks have been interesting in that respect for the overall outlook on transportation in Oregon. So that's one area. I'd also say, we have our STIF advisory committee, our statewide transportation improvement fund advisory committee. That's a good place to provide input and comments to show up there, because that group is involved in programming of our state payroll tax dollars. Those are a couple of opportunities.
Disappointing, I think, for some of us at least, that the transportation package did not pass in some form. I think that's concerning for our transit districts and statewide, not just here, but statewide. Not everyone would agree with me, but some of us were disappointed. Anything else? Not? Thank you very much, Mr. Roth, for coming out.
Very nice presentation.
Yeah, thank you for having me. And again, we'll be in touch once we get this project going. We'd like to come back out and talk more.
We'd love that.
Yeah.
We're interested in increasing the opportunities here in Coburg.
Great. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Roth.
Yep.
That was very informative.
Good. Worth waiting for, right?
It was.
Yes. Good. Okay, next agenda item are ordinances and resolutions. And we have resolution 2025-16, a resolution authorizing 2025 to 2027 Department of Land Conservation Development Housing Planning Assistance Grant application. And Mr. Hanks will provide a staff report, and I believe Ms. Winter is also going to be involved in that.
Yes,
Turn that over to you.
thank you, Mayor. Yeah, this is an opportunity that came about through our partnership, longstanding land use partnership with LCOG. And they approached us with an opportunity of a multi-city grant application that they would be the grant applicant and we would be one of the communities that would do some of this work that we've kind of had on our list for a while. This is partial, so we've talked about the buildable lands inventory. This would cover the residential portion. Megan is cooking up a plan to capture the non-residential portion with a different program that we'll bring that back to you if that all comes to fruition, which we think it will. So we may be cobbling together a BLI rather than doing one kind of project for it. Still same results, great data for us to work on. And then in addition with this one, we get some housing information and strategy and planning in place, which I think is great. The grant application, it's early, hasn't been applied for clearly, and the grant application requirements for each city require a resolution from council, not just a letter of support or interest. So this was put forward tonight just to ensure that we can get if council is interested in supplying, get a resolution back to our LCOG partners in time for them to submit. And right now, I think the cities are Cottage Grove and just Crestwell and Cottage Grove. Okay, there was a question about whether there's going to be 2 or 3 cities.
Cs, the
three.
three Cs.
Oh, there we go. Yeah. One thing that isn't for sure yet is potential for staff time reimbursement, which I think would be great in a number of ways. A little plug is that I think Megan's kind of deeper involvement than just having this outsourced to someone is that when we get the stuff back, the information back, Megan will know how the data was collected, all the nuances of that, and how I think it gives us a real leg up on implementing things that come from this work. So I think it's excellent, and I think it'll be fun. The other part, I think it'll be really fun. Yeah.
Well, I will entertain a motion at this time.
Move to adopt resolution 2025-16, a resolution authorizing 2025-2027 Department of Land Conservation and Development Housing Planning Assistance Grant application.
I will second that.
Thank you. We have a motion by Counselor Wells and a second by Counselor Bowman. Is there any debate
For discussion,
or discussion?
Just a question.
Yes.
Megan, was this the information provided to the planning commission?
No, this is actually a new opportunity that we will talk about at our next planning commission meeting.
Wells?
Are we not underway with buildable lands inventory already? Maybe I'm wrong about that. Or we're underway with a capacity analysis for our water system, are we not?
Yes.
We finished a capacity analysis for water. We just got a draft document back for our wastewater capacity
All right, I'm sorry.
analysis. And we did try
Imagine.
last year. We were unsuccessful in a grant for a full complete BLI from last year. So we did bring that forward and tried to get that grant funded, and we're not successful in that one.
We have talked about BLI. It just hasn't quite happened.
We know it needs to happen. It's trying to figure out the how. Any other questions or comments, debate, discussion? If not, I'll call for a vote. All those in favor?
I,
Any opposed? The resolution 2025-16 passes unanimously. This is authorizing the 2025-2027 Department of Land Conservation and Development Housing Planning Assistance Grant application. So keeping our fingers crossed, how sure are we on getting this?
Confident.
Confident.
How about that?
Confident. Visit.
No, I think it really, we're not the top tier. The top tier of that are targeted for this are the ones that are mandatory, that have some mandatory requirements. We fall below the mandatory threshold for the housing
size.
capacity for our size. But LCOG has, when we're talking multiple cities, they've really bolstered that. And I think have put us in a position to be right below those mandatories. And some of those mandatories that are above us have already completed theirs. So it's not like it's the full state of that group. So it's always about who we're competing against, as with anything.
LCOG has been quite successful.
Yes.
Grants, so I'm hopeful. Okay, thank you very much. Now we have a public hearing on resolution 2025-11, a resolution adopting fees and administrative surcharges for planning and development applications and service. I will now open the public meeting at 7:24. And we have a staff report by Mr. Hanks.
Thank you, Mayor. Yes, this one is the plan, or the intention was to bring forward, we thought, some relatively straightforward increases, and updates to the land use fees that we use. Yeah, I was probably told before we brought it forward that it's more complicated than I was planning it to be. So it's, Megan had said that and Sammy as well. So what we put in the packet is the background, that, resolutions and ordinances that relate to all of our fees. And if you had a chance to look at it, it does, it gets complicated. And what we started, or what I started, at least in my head, was to simplify. What we have is a land use fee structure that doesn't really match cleanly with our applications that we have and what we call them. And it gets pretty, it slices them up quite a bit, subdivision with between 10 lots and 15, it really gets granular really quickly. And the more we looked at the history, why and how it's embedded in the ordinances, the 208 specifically, there's an A and a B. There's a variety of ordinances that guide this. The methodology was really to have a kind of a metered build by the hour type system, and getting more input from Sammy on some of the history for that, because it dates to 2007, I believe. That's how the planning program was operated. It was outsourced. So, wanting to ensure the council at that time, you wanted the applicant to pay what the city was then paying to provide the application services, and have a billing system that kind of kept that accurate, and not have an averaging. Many cities will have a fee that's $1,500 for a type 1, $3,500 for a type 2. Some type 2s might truly be straightforward and only kind of take $1,500 of staff time, but the applicant pays $3,500. Some, the type 2 could be $15,000 of cost, but the applicant only pays $3,500. Some of that is purely dependent upon if it gets called up for a hearing. If some cities have people can call those up. They aren't automatically a hearing. And so once they become a hearing, they automatically get more expensive. So there's just kind of a different methodologies, in theory, of how you do land use fees. So in front of you tonight, we kind of moved forward, and last second thought, well, what we're putting forward in the resolution can legally be done with the variety of the 208A, B, and then the 204, all the different ordinances. It allows it to be done and updated by resolution. But procedurally, we're not really, we haven't been following super closely the billable hours concept. There's a base fee, and then which is a deposit, and then there's a secondary fee. And if the combination of those turn out to be more than what the hours were actually done on the particular action, that's refunded. So we could move forward with a resolution today, and what we put in there. Kind of option 2 is to say we probably need to review the underlying ordinances rather than just work on updating the resolution and the fees, because we may end up semi-solving it, and instead of addressing kind of how we actually function, in our current planning program. There's a community development department, we have planning, we have building. Building will be coming to you with building fees, a lot more straightforward. There's a state step we have to do. And what we really want in the building side is for the building permit fees to pretty much, 1-to-1 match up with our third-party contract that we have for the building program, and a small portion of the administrative time to do that. That's a pretty straightforward process. On the planning side, it's a little more convoluted. And, the theory is that current planning should be funded by those that use the services. And that's kind of what the old 208 ordinances do, just in a very hard to administer way, very intensive on billable hours and what is an allowed, what is actually an expense to the applicant, what isn't. A lot of time and effort on that. So the goal was to kind of change that. And what we really probably need to do to give you a sense of what the fee should be is really assess what some of those processes, how much time they take, and what are we looking for cost recovery? The total planning program is made up of kind of current planning, development applications, commission work, committee work, and long-range planning. We do some transportation planning and then some just general long-range planning. When we do comp plan stuff, we do the grant work that we just talked about. That's more long-range planning. That one is pretty typical and pretty standard to have the general fund, the community property tax pay for the majority of those, because that is a benefit, that's a wide benefit to the community. The current planning development program is typically then the part where the applicant fees pay for. Kind of napkin guessing that's about, if we take the building program, set that cost aside, take the planning program, and then take the portion that is current planning from that total program, that's the number we probably want to set our fees to match up to. We don't really have all that for you tonight. The resolution in front of you doesn't accurately connect to say, what is our cost recovery we want for the current planning program? That's the model that I think we want to move towards. But we probably need to do more work to do that.
What I'm hearing is we probably aren't ready to move forward on this tonight.
Yeah, I think it's helpful to have the conversation about what it looks like and what we're trying to do. The secondary piece to that, besides not necessarily being ready, I don't think to go ahead and approve it, is maybe getting some feedback of what model we want to build it towards. And then the other piece of that is, how important is it in terms of everything else on our plate? I had put it forward as kind of regular every fiscal year, looking at fees, having them keep up. And we're doing that with other fees that are more straightforward. This one is a little more can of worms. And we also have not a huge development load right now. So we don't see the revenue implications are not significant either. If the revenue implications were larger, I would say it maybe is a higher priority given our general fund conversations. So I guess that's the two-tiered thing is, a little feedback on kind of the preferred methodology that we want to move towards. And, maybe some acknowledgement or if there is a difference of opinion about what priority it is. And I sort of want to maybe move it back a notch or two in our operational priorities.
I've just seen some resolutions where you approve the process and the concept of the fees, but not necessarily having the resolution include the exact fees. So how important is it? I'm assuming your fee structure here is part of the resolution or not? Separate the two and approve the resolution with some language that says a fee schedule will be developed by the city administrator.
The resolution is the fee schedule. So the methodology, the thing that lays out the system is the ordinance. And we have multiple ordinances that interact.
Ordinance and resolution.
Right. And so that's another reason we're bringing it backwards to really kind of marry them up properly. We really need to look at amending the ordinances probably. And then the resolution is kind of the icing on top. That just sets the actual rates based on the theory that the ordinance builds out.
So what you need from us is, what do we feel like the priority is to do this work? And then we need to give direction to staff in terms of what we want.
Yeah, and yes, the idea on priority probably is a winter spring thing, is to have us kind of pull some stuff together and kind of not have it be a front burner right now, high priority item, but not lose track of it, because I think there's value in cleaning it up because we comply with it, but it's awkward. We don't do it perfectly, but there's a lot of kind of
pretty complex.
Yeah,
and
there's
a lot of sort of decision making
Yes.
in terms of not real black and white.
Right, and there's a lot of opportunity to have the city administrator alter a fee and then come back around after to embed that as the new fee and all. So it's a navigable path. We put our heads together and kind of made sense of it. But then if you leave it for a week and come back, you kind of start over again. And like, what was that path again? So the two things, yeah, if winter, spring, coming back with this sounds workable. That's one piece. And then the other piece really is the concept. Is the concept, do you want to remain having an ordinance that has really this billable hours and making sure that each applicant is paying as close to the accurate amount of staff time per application, or have it more of a blend, basically, to say, hey, you're doing a type 1, it generally takes us about this amount. And it may not be exact applicant by applicant, but in aggregate, it's fair and equitable because some are gonna win, some lose. And that theory rather than this strict billable hours theory. That's probably the two pieces, priority and theory.
Priority. Okay. Council?
And we can even come back and you don't have to answer that today.
Councilor Wells?
Yeah, I'm biting my tongue, but the idea of compensating the planning staff for something they're already being paid for has always been problematic for me. They're being paid a salary through the general fund, and yet you're asking the developer, whoever that might be, to pay for staff time put towards their proposal. So does that mean that the staff is going to work overtime? Or because they're being compensated regardless. And to me, I'm from a long time ago. You used to go up to the counter at City Hall and you'd get your permit right there, right now, pay your fee, and that was it. And it's gotten so utterly complex now with land use that it takes a lot of time. I mean, it takes a lot of time because the zoning codes are so complex. And what Megan has to go through to get a project approved is enormously complicated where it shouldn't have to be. But I'm mixing and matching my comments. I am very opposed to this. I'm very opposed to visiting fee schedules for a community of this size where we probably have 4 or 5 development proposals every 6 months. I mean, you said it yourself. I mean, the revenue,
Counselor Wells?
I'm sorry.
I'm gonna stop you.
Thank you. That's what I asked you.
The two questions on the table are priority. Can we put this off until fall, winter to really get some staff input? And then what was the second question?
Well, it kind of gets to the start of the theory. And if I could maybe try and get to part of that, because it's a good point. The whole thing is very similar to our parks conversation. What should the general fund, everybody's money, pay for various services in the general fund, and what should those that are more directly utilizing those services, how much cost recovery should we get from that specific applicant pool, right? Applicants are, they ultimately are, it's a business. They're developing the property. They are getting services. It can be zero. It's a policy question. So I'm not going to say that it has to be one way or another. It definitely could be not at all associated with time. Right now it is. It's on a time and kind of a time and materials thing. What we're talking about is the idea of shifting it to more a policy conversation about what is the desired cost recovery for the current planning, for responding and dealing with current planning. We still have to do statewide planning requirements. Regardless if we have 0 applications a year, we still have some responsibilities to do land use planning. So those are paid for through the general fund. There is no customer to get that from. The customer is everybody. In this case, the conversation is there is a customer for the current planning work because we are processing an application that they are voluntarily putting forward. They're not being mandated. It's not like a utility bill where they have to pay. So the policy question is, should there be any cost recovery at all from the applicant who is using general fund assets to go through a development process? It could be 0. You could have it nominally be a very, very small amount. in my long time ago, another jurisdiction, we had a consultant that came in and we did all this time and estimating what was long range planning, what was code enforcement, what, all the different elements. And then what was the target? And it was a 75% cost recovery target for current planning only, not the long range planning. And so the fees were all then established by how much time they took, generally by category, and by the target of what was the cost recovery target from the city. So I think that's the difference, and that's what the intention is how to create a basis for this particular revenue stream.
I sort of liken this to utilization of our parks. We go, we utilize our parks. We don't pay any extra fee if I take the kids to the park or I have a picnic unless I reserve the park. If I reserve the park or I have a major event in the park, I have to pay for that privilege to do it. That's sort of the way it seems. Some of it, yes, I believe the discussion is correct. Some of it is just in the general fund. All of the things that benefit the entire community could be in the general fund. But if it's something specifically for me,
Added
then
service.
I have to look at how am I going to fund that?
And it's really trying to figure out what's the appropriate
Right.
ratio based on as Councilor Wells said, as the size of the community, the complexity of the community, the desire, how it's also has some tentacles into economic development. You don't want a fee structure that, is
Stifle.
prohibitive to development. So it ends up being really a policy question about how we want to handle portion of cost recovery for the program.
Councilor Smith.
The idea of
Just close the public
Oh,
hearing.
I'm sorry. Yep, I will close the public hearing at 7:41.
Thank you.
Councilor Smith.
So are we finished with that part or are we still deciding whether we want delay or move?
I think we need to give staff direction
Mhm.
on, are we delaying it? And what is the policy foundation?
I feel like I need a lot more information before I could make a decision. I would like to have some time for them to put a presentation together that's understandable and we can, or apples to apples, maybe a little bit better. I would like to put it on.
Councilor Bowman?
I am also very much in favor of doing this because it is such a complex and thorny issue. And in terms of the methodology, I will be very brief. I prefer the second theory that you outlined because I think it's cleaner and neater. And there's less room for some people feeling like they're being overcharged versus others not feeling the same way. I know that's not the intent, but that can be the perception and this sort of thing. So I prefer just an approximation of the actual staff time because that way it's cleaner and neater.
To run an average based on the type of permit or
Right.
request.
I thought I heard the second one was more flexible. Add if it became more expensive to the city.
Or you-
No,
you do
it-
the average and then that covers the low end and the high end.
Right. And the other part of that is, putting the hat on of the applicant, is that our current system, it's unknown what the total cost is technically, because it's billable and it could be, well, if there's this study, then it triggers this fee, you pay those fees. The other part of, as Councilor Bowman put it, it is cleaner, administratively, it is, I think I've done surveys with development community and other places. And, the known quantity of what am I stepping through? What are the fees and what does that get me and how much am I in for it? I think, that's an important piece too. And this is You know, there's no wrong answers. It's just different ways of approaching it. And again, this isn't massive revenue. As Counselor Wells said, there's not tons of development, but it's probably the right time to do it is when there isn't a ton of development, and making sure that what we do have in place isn't way off, and it won't be perfect. You know, the target, you know, when you set a target for cost recovery, that target is probably, you should probably only do the math on a 10-year rolling average, you know, because it's going to be, it's based on, you know, economic conditions about how many applicants come through in any given year. So the target is kind of a, not quite aspirational, but it's a conceptual target to say that's the amount of cost recovery in general that we're shooting for, and different years are going to give you different results. But to Councilor Smith's point, you know, it wasn't an intention to bind you to a certain pathway. It was just to maybe get a sense, because we'll definitely pull this together. What you have is just enough in the packet to show that it's thornier than we had hoped, to just kind of clean up some of our business and check it off the list and move on. And clearly, you know, that's shared with you all that it's worthy of probably some backing up a few steps and laying out some groundwork. If there's any other final comments, but that's the kind of input I was looking for from that Councilor Bowman provided. If that's generally leaning that way, we'll put effort into both to give you comparisons anyway. But
Winter.
Yeah.
Is that consensus of council?
Yeah.
All winter, we'll bring it back.
and I extend it to winter spring. Because our very next meeting after this meeting, or our next regular meeting is September, which is kind of fall. That's the very next meeting. So, winter, spring. Yeah, I'll use Dave's that winter. We can fudge whichever side we pick for winter.
And it does, it would seem to have sort of this fixed fee based on an average. To me, that seems more objective than subjective. What we have right now looks pretty subjective from my point.
Yeah, the only way to make that objective is really tons and tons of kind of like attorney style billable hours every quarter hour, and you track it. And what's embedded in there is a lot of administrative work. For you spend more administrative work than you do revenue, ultimately. Yeah.
Okay, so got what you need?
Think so, unless there's some.
We don't have to have a vote. We don't have to do anything because we're not moving forward on that.
Nope.
Okay, thank you.
Great, thank you.
Thank you.
All right.
Thank you,
Thank you.
Ms. Winter.
All right, so next we have, turn the page, sorry about this. We have the intergovernmental agreement with Harrisburg for traffic and code enforcement. Have a staff report from Mr. Hanks on that. Do we also need Chief Larson on that?
Yeah, Chief Larson's gonna join me up here. He can probably answer some, if there are questions, beyond general administrative contract and IGA. What the item in front of you here is, it is a new intergovernmental agreement with the city of Harrisburg. It is a replica of the prior agreement. What you have is a red line with some very minor changes to an agreement that was a 3-year prior agreement that had just expired. So we're putting this forward to kind of business as usual, very similar operational hours and structure to last year. And I put a little bit of information in here that I got from Chief Larson on its origination and kind of the hours that it started at and how it's slowly evolved up in hours. But I think it's hit kind of an equilibrium spot, probably, that this ratio of traffic and code enforcement is, it fits the bill really well for Harrisburg and what they need to augment their public safety work that they have a contract with Lynn County Sheriffs. And they've been very, very pleased with the services that the Coburg Police Department can provide them. And this contract does provide some revenue to the general fund, and police services, police departments rarely do. this is somewhat unique to have an opportunity that where there's a partner that is interested and we can facilitate some kind of niche services that really help that other community and help us financially. And we have expertise. We have expertise in a local department that can operate kind of differently than a sheriff's office can, and we have that capacity. So this is, in summary, mostly just a continuation of that. The hours are up just a little bit, the total hours in the agreement, and those are adjusted annually, and as is the hourly rate that is adjusted up equivalent to any adjustments to our salary schedule. That just gets forward along and ups that composite hourly rate a little as well. So the request in front is to approve this intergovernmental agreement, and then I execute that, and Larry actually operates it.
Thank you, Adam. The mayor's coming back, so I'll just let her. Yes, yeah, might as well. Wait.
So I will entertain a motion at this point to accept the IGA for traffic and code enforcement services. Gavel.
I move to approve the intergovernmental agreement for traffic and code enforcement services to the city of Harrisburg as presented and authorize the city administrator to execute the contract upon approval.
Have a motion by Counselor Smith. Do I have a second?
I'll second.
Second by Counselor Myers. Is there any discussion or debate?
Mayor?
Yes.
I'm assuming that this agreement is something that Chief Larson supports and feels is doable and has been it's been a program that's working okay for you. And
yeah, it's working out really well. They've adjusted some of the hours from the traffic to ordinance enforcement was really the only change. And then we're sensitive to their needs. They needed additional help on another community event, and so we were able to help them. So yeah, it's a good relationship, working out really well.
Anyone else? If not, I don't know why I keep picking up the gavel. Apologies for that. I just would think I want to hit things tonight. All those in favor say aye.
I
Aye. Any opposed? Hearing none, the motion passes 6-0 to approve the 3-year IGA with the city of Harrisburg to provide resolution 2025-16 authorizing the 2025-2027 Department of, oh, wait a minute, I'm way off here. That's why I needed that gavel apparently. So we support the IGA with the city of Harrisburg. Thank you, and that passed unanimously.
That was your scripter's error, not
Oh,
yours.
was that? Oh, I will own it though, Sammy. I was just reading on down and went, wait a minute. I think that while, Harrisburg is in a different county and that complicates that relationship. But I think as I look at this, I will be honest and tell you, I think we're going to have more of these conversations about regionalization and how do we work together as small cities to get things done, because we're all sort of in this same quagmire, if you will, we're not big enough to do it all ourselves and we're not small enough that we don't need anything. And we're all facing those same struggles. So I think we're going to be looking at more regionalization as we move forward, where it fits. It isn't going to fit in every place, but it will fit in some places. And so those questions again will come to us as a council, and we will have to make a
decision about what makes sense and what doesn't. Okay, enough of that. All right, we are on now to, oh, we get the total maximum daily load report. This is always my favorite.
I'm glad you said that because I didn't want to get hit with a gavel.
I'm putting it down. And Mr. Harmon, are you going to give us that riveting information?
I'm gonna let the boss start off. and-
I'll start, but yeah,
Right.
TMDL is all Brian. Yeah, not actually, it's expanded. Because TMDL is getting more involved. So it actually is expanding beyond, fairly straightforward annual reports on that you see in the back of the packet. But that just to real quick, in terms of packet, the implementation plan is the spreadsheet matrix there that has all the details about what is done to
Yes.
comply with TMDL. Yeah, it's not a great marketing term. It's, it's water quality. It's non-point source water quality regulations. Over the decades, I suppose, it has slowly crept up to be, a growing regulatory area for all cities. Again, us as a smaller city, we are spared a lot of the regulatory. We're the last kind of groups to reach some of those regulations. So a new one that will be coming onto this, there's some temperature requirements that now will be added to this total reporting and monitoring that happens in this watershed. So I'll let Brian go through the details. He put together a good staff report of the the things that they look for in this and kind of some of the hot items or what we do to address them. The one piece that I'll add that we talk about a lot at council is and struggle with are unfunded mandates, and TMDL is somewhat of an unfunded mandate. And so to address that, this last year, DEQ and you all saw DeBeat. DeBeat was a result of some of the funded mandates. So DEQ provided kind of this unique, rare funding opportunity to help cities accomplish their TMDL goals. And DeBeat, we applied for that, received it. I think, smartly with Brian's work with Muddy Creek Irrigation, we combined the application was to do work primarily for our TMDL, but also to help Muddy Creek. And we are connected with Muddy Creek for with our effluent and other ways. So it was a really good thing. And I think it's nice to note when there are some of these things that are unfunded mandates that there are some funding opportunities to offset some of those costs and help boost our ability to comply with the requirements. So with that, I'll turn it over to Brian to go through it.
Yeah, so I just really want to go through the high points. Like Adam referred to the matrix that you guys have, all of those boxes. Everything that's in red are things that we were able to accomplish this last year. And in years past, I know some of you are new to the TMDL and what all goes into it, but if some of you that have been here a while, Mary, you can probably attest to this. In years past, there was a lot of things that we just couldn't do. Funding was an issue, staffing was an issue, but in 2024, we really put our best foot forward. And I think that the lion's share of that was through DeBeat's efforts. And we were pretty clear with DEQ when we met with the TMDL administrator for this basin, that was an important piece. And we really appreciated DEQ funding that. So with that said, the matrix is broke down into several different categories. And I just wanted to go over kind of the highlights of a few of those categories. So mercury has been the last couple of years one of the big hot topics. How do we get mercury out of the streams and rivers? So, we spend quite a bit of time in our bioswales doing maintenance, and, you know, that 70 hours might not seem like a lot in the grand scheme of things, but it is when you think about, you know, when we can get in there, what type of work we're doing, how often, those sorts of things. So 70 hours in the bioswales is quite a bit. 129 hours of street sweeping, you know, those hours are not necessarily all day long. Some of those hours, especially on the curb and gutter streets that, you know, the city doesn't own, that we spend, you know, early morning hours trying to beat traffic and then get off of those streets when we can. It doesn't always happen that way. Sometimes we do spend all day out on the street sweeper, but it's usually those early morning hours. So, and then, you know, the leaf pickup season, the 77 hours we spend on leaf pickup. So when I start talking about hours spent, that's on top of everything else that we do on a daily basis. So when you break down a day and how many hours we spend doing some of these maintenance operations, it does fill up the day pretty fast.
Can I jump in real quick,
Yep,
maybe?
absolutely.
One thing I didn't hit in the overview is this whole report is primarily around storm drain. You know, we have point source effluent from our wastewater plant, which is a completely different regulatory process than this. This is this non-point source. And we're a unique storm drain system, and we have a storm drain master plan that we'll get into this later in the fall when we bring the master plan forward. But it's a really interesting, especially for me from a different place that had curb and gutter systems everywhere, having a non-curb and gutter system with bioswales and infiltration and not really having much in the way of outfalls makes this different than it is in a lot of cities. So just wanted to note that this is primarily storm drain related work that we do. It's actually more regulated than people would think. And our system actually, in that regard, I think, helps us.
clean.
Yeah, it's pretty
Very
clean,
clean.
and it not much gets to the streams because of the system we have compared to other communities. So it is, just wanted to throw out there that it's yet another reason that, you know, Coburg's infrastructure is a little unique.
Yeah, very unique. Yes, sir.
How many bioswales do we have?
So it all depends. That's a great question. We have large cells and we have small cells. So most of the new subdivisions and some of the new reconstructed streets have infiltration ditches, which are miniature versions of the larger swales that you see on Austin and Abbey, and then at the end of Vintage, and the one that was installed in the new subdivision in Coburg Creek. So those are what we refer to as bioswales. So all of those are infiltration. Now, the one in Coburg Creek is kind of unique. It does have, I think it's a 500-year flood overflow, which, you know, if the 500-year flood happens, you're not going to need an overflow. The ditch is probably going to be full anyway. So, but the Austin and Abbey, there really isn't outlets for those. The Canterbury Slough or Booth Kelly, that kind of that area is kind of geared more towards the Vintage. And then out there on the end of Abbey by Bottom Loop, that technically is designed to carry load into that slough as well, but it also is designed or could have the potential to cross Bottom Loop onto the other side of that road.
Do those areas need to ever be cleaned out?
You know, not necessarily. Sometimes the outfall areas into those bioswales can get silted in, but over time we will know that by how much that outfall gets covered, and then, you know, the surcharge back into the stormwater system. But there is enough flow during events that it carries that silt away from the outfall.
And the silt load is a little bit different than if you had a curb and guttered system that is, pushing a lot of volume, per rain event. We don't get a lot of volume because it's infiltration and not a lot gets there. It automatically kind of slows that all down and runs it through. And that I would say is fairly supersized for what goes into that particular one, the Bruce and Abbey. But yeah, it's designed where it could roll over the top, but we'll get into more of kind of the maintenance plan, and the storm drain master plan will have all the inventory and maps of all of our systems and how it intertwines with Lane County's system as well when we get to the master plan, where we have a 90% document that we have a few things that we're needing to get back to the consultant before they can finish that off, but that'll come to council relatively soon.
Yep, and just to, kind of go through these, bacteria is another category that is on our 5-year matrix. So to go back just a little bit, so those of you that aren't familiar with the TMDL, we have a 5-year matrix. So every year we have to report to two bodies, City Council and the DEQ, on activities done in that year, that calendar year. And this is the first year of this 5-year matrix. So the temperature TMDL that was just implemented very recently, we'll probably bring more information back as that goes along. I don't foresee any huge ramifications or impacts to our matrix with that new TMDL rule, that temperature rule.
The letter, it was in May, I think, when the rule came into place, the OAR. And so we had a meeting with our DEQ TMDL person because the letter that everybody got, all jurisdictions, was ominous.
Yeah.
And because it was all inclusive, it's for everybody. So when we broke it down and say, what do we have going on? And it's some shading analysis that has to be done. When we looked at it practically for how it impacts us, it is fairly nominal. It will be a little more work than is on the current matrix, but not as substantial as our initial letter made it look about all the reports and studies and things we'd have to do. We're not subject to most of those. So it's doable.
Yeah. The letter was scary, but it's not that scary. The bacteria one, I just wanted to share, for those that don't see that number on a regular basis, you will, now that you're on city council, see this report every year. But 38,540 dog bags were distributed. And Adam and I have talked about this. I believe that I would challenge any city around us to say that they hand out that many bags, but it helps. And that is one of the big things that DEQ pushes, is getting that dog waste where it needs to be, in a trash receptacle. And I think we do a very good job of making sure that those are utilized. So, I mean, that's almost 40,000 bags in a calendar year.
Well, are certainly available. If they're not utilized, that's not your fault.
That's 100 bags a day.
Yeah.
So yeah. Yeah, we're not totally sure, but
Like Adam mentioned, I attend the Muddy Creek Irrigation Projects board meetings monthly. I try and hit every one of them, but sometimes I'm not here. And in the summer, they typically don't have board meetings because of harvest. So we work very closely with that board on, trying to keep the ditch clear, especially around our outfall. Adam mentioned the point source. Our temperature, there's a couple things that we have on our matrix. One is the outfall for our effluent. And that's kind of it's in our matrix, but it's not really regulated by the TMDL arm of DEQ. It's on the wastewater discharge side of DEQ. Like Adam mentioned, we're almost completed with the stormwater master plan. This has been a project that's been ongoing for
since I got
5 years. 5 years. It's been a long time.
Yeah.
And in fact, I think Jeff Kernan was the one that started that project. So it's been that long. It's been a while. And we're very, very excited to see the end result. I wanted to mention again, DeBeat, the rare member from AmeriCorps. He did the Arbor Day celebration. We planted native plants at Jacob Spores. DeBeat is the one that took the vegetation management and maintenance plan to the point to where Adam and I have got a working document that we're going to be able to bring to council. I think we're taking it. Yep. So we're pretty excited about the work that DeBeat was able to do. You know, there's some pictures in here of the classroom. DeBeat came out and did, you know, a tour at the wastewater plant with the fifth graders. That was great. He did some experiments in the classroom, and he gave Megan and I say Megan and I because Megan and I are going to be taking the TMDL. What DeBeat started, we're going to take it and run with it. So, you know, we're looking forward to 2025, the spring of 2026, because he's already done 2025. Yeah. So.
Yeah, we're always working like a year
Yeah,
ahead.
yep.
aren't we?
Well, we work in a fiscal year and a calendar year. You can mash two together. Usually it doesn't. Anyway,
Oh.
we're looking forward to the next round of classes with kids. So,
They always love that, don't they? Yep.
so this is just kind of a formality. It's housekeeping, but we want to make sure that you guys understand, and hopefully there's a little bit of knowledge that we can glean. We can give you guys. So next year when we talk, you don't just go, oh,
This is
TMDL.
important stuff.
It's very
The
important. It is.
quality of the water that we all consume is extremely important.
And you know, I can, like Adam mentioned, Coburg's stormwater collection system is very unique. It really is, because it's almost 100% infiltration. So, you know, when you think about, that's what the ground does. It filters the water, and it filters the impurities out, and then it, you know, puts it right back into the groundwater. Yes, sir.
I was just gonna say, the mayor is right. This is important stuff. And this is sort of what my father does, although not with water, with air.
Oh, yes.
He's a permit writer.
Hmm.
So he makes sure that when a business or industry applies for permits, they fall within the number of pollutants allowed by law. So although I am new to this body, I'm very familiar with EMDL type subjects because I've gone to work with them since I was a small child.
There you go.
So you're right, it is very important. Sometimes your eyes can glaze over, but it is very important.
Yes. Thank you, Councilor Bowman. Any other questions, comments for Brian? Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you and your staff for all you do.
Put on some more sunscreen next time.
All right, we have the Police Department quarterly report, and that is in our packet.
Yeah, I'll start, and Larry can come up and chat about any questions you might have. So just from a process, what we're trying to accomplish is, of course, we have monthly in the city administration report, we have kind of monthly stats. The goal with this one is to kind of back up a little bit and give a little more, you know, highlight a few things, and then give some more trending type stats rather than the monthly you see. They both have value. And this is a format that we were just working on this last month, and trying to hit kind of a police department version of the administrator's report that really hits on some of that police stuff that you don't otherwise hear from unless something like goes wrong. So with that, I'll just turn it over to the chief and can go through this. A few things we may have doubled up on, but we're also distributing this independently on social media, and then it'll be on the police department's webpage, and it just ended up being quarterly. So I think it'll be nice trends to see what's going on, highlight certain programs, and just make sure that there's kind of a broad understanding of what the department does.
And with that, I just want to brag about the award that Dan received on the CNT call out. That was pretty nice. The sheriff's department had a really big awards banquet. 30, 40 awards, so it was really nice. Then you can see a accommodation for Officer Wilson to actually give a motorist a ticket, so
Fantastic.
you get those every once in a while. You get the other side of that too. but it's nice.
Those aren't very printable.
Right. Little. And then second quarter, just trying to get some of the trends as Adam stated. So we had quite a few, 3 or 4 or 5 death investigations, which happens. Those take only 4 or 5 hours apiece at least. It depends on the investigation, and then calling the medical examiner's office. It could be several hours for them to respond. Speed enforcement, we've been very active on traffic stops. I think we have like 70 citations for this upcoming court date. A lot of it is people speeding at 45, 50, even in the 20-mile-an-hour zone. So we're educating the public. A couple of weeks, we gave quite a few warnings. And then since then, we've been writing citations so they can get the point across. I think it really does have an impact on safety for pedestrians, because I haven't received any complaints about pedestrians almost being hit. That's kind of how I judge how much I hear. I haven't heard anything. I'm sure there's been some, but it's been a lot better with the 20-mile-an-hour zone. And Harrisburg is jealous of that, by the way.
I also noticed pulling out from side street,
Yes.
when people are going, when your main traffic is going 20, you actually have an option to pull out.
I think it's much safer, so I think that was a great decision. And then the rest of the report is just the 7 categories and the totals for the second quarter. And then in the very back is kind of a graph of those statistics by quarter, so you can kind of see they're fairly consistent in the police world. Nothing's consistent, but they're not too much of a discrepancy. Traffic stops, of course, have gone up. And that sometimes varies on just the police activity. And then I'll be glad to answer any questions.
Well, you're certainly staying busy. Counselor Lehman.
So about a year or so ago, we were becoming more alarmed about the homelessness issues
Mhm.
and the law that was changed and rechanged. We haven't really had that come to fruition too much here, have we?
We deal with it very promptly. So there are certain spots where they would normally congregate, and we check those daily, not more, and try to help them with whatever assistance they need. Had one wanted to go to Corvallis, so I gave him a ride to the 216 exit, gave him halfway. I think Sergeant Miller took somebody to the train station here a while back. The CHEP program is used quite often, buy meals and fuel and stuff for them to be able to assist the motorist, and that seems to work out very well. Currently, the truck stop is owned off their overflow lot, and so we don't get any travelers or campers going in there, but we did. We had 4 or 5 in one day here a couple weeks ago. So it ebbs and flows, but we're on top of it pretty quick.
Counselor Bowman.
Bit of a follow-up, have the informational posters that the department posted with regards to the electric or motorized scooters / mopeds, have those made a difference?
I think they have with some of the enforcement and talking to a few parents, I think that's almost stopped.
Oh,
I've
It's
certainly
been
seen it.
really a drastic change.
There's, see it a little bit.
that's a great thing, and I guess I will just address briefly for anybody who watches this. I've used an electric wheelchair for my entire life. So I know what I'm doing. When you're a young and up and coming kid, you don't always, you're not spatially aware, you're not looking, you don't have the awareness. So I think it's very important to be educated about that type of stuff.
What is the law or issue with the electric mopeds and bicycles?
They can't ride them if they're under 16.
They can ride a bicycle,
public street.
Yeah, on public streets, they,
can't ride a
Right.
motorized bicycle.
Right.
Even electric.
right.
Even if the.
Yeah, there's a whole sheet trying to explain, and I think it does a fairly good job across the top. Helmets, just all the different requirements.
Yeah, it's complicated.
It is complicated.
But the easy part is under 16 can't. That's the simplest part of that whole poster that we put out. So there's one in City Hall, there's one at the Bike Hub, and there was one at the restroom at Norma.
Was.
And I mean, it was with some support from parents, because parents didn't know. And once, they were educated, and a couple, I'll date myself, Evel Knievels. I know what some of those young riders were doing. They were pretty aggressive riders on little bikes. So.
Yeah, I go at a pretty good clip, and these kids scare me.
Yeah, so I think we've addressed that pretty successful.
Thanks for reaching out to the parents. I think that that's huge because sometimes you just don't know what it is. And I've noticed down on my end of town, they're not riding at all. And it's the age limit thing, because all of the kids that were doing it were under 16.
Oh, yeah.
I see it once a
They were
day.
all little.
I see it once a day.
Yeah,
Young kids,
I saw yesterday one, yeah.
right through the middle of the park,
No, just right in front of our house.
on your house.
Yeah.
It's far less, yeah.
Yes.
So do you know where they live?
No, with my leg, I can't run after it.
Too fast.
Okay, I was gonna say you could talk to their parents. Yeah. They don't really care. Anything else? Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. You're staying busy and we appreciate that. And we have the administrative monthly report. Adam, was there anything that you would like to highlight on that?
Probably the highlight, and I sent an email out a few weeks ago to you all about it, but our finance director, Greg Pex left the city. So we are, we're down another body for a bit. So I gave a staffing update there for finance, public works, and police. So Mayor and I are working on a variety of potential strategies for how we address the finance director position. We'll come back to you with more when things are more shaped up. Right now, we're filling that gap. We're fortunate to fill that gap with the same financial consultant we had prior, who basically helped, manage the implementation of our in-house payroll. Has run a lot of our revamped our monthly reconciliation processes and our monthly financial reports. So it's kind of a plug and play. That is not the permanent solution at all. So we're looking at what are good permanent solutions. And part of the challenge, as you all know that have been here, that's every 2 years in a turnover, I think there's some potential for some mismatched skill set, job duties, expectations, all of those things. I've been talking with other city managers, even a little bit larger size, and have been changing strategies about what they're trying to attack on staff versus outsource versus third party, all those things. So, we're taking this time right now to just get through what we need to get through. It's right at the fiscal year, so we're 1 foot in FY25, the other foot in FY26, and doing things in both. And I provided an update on the finance tab here about what's going on for that, for just kind of the technical stuff. So we're getting everything accomplished, and it does save us a little bit of money. That's not really the objective. The objective is to make sure that we have a critical position adequately filled, by fall-ish. One just plug is that there's potential for an IGA VELCOG to to have accounting and finance services provided by LCOG at a certain level and keep some of the processing stuff, or maybe it's reversed. We don't know yet. The processing work can happen here. The higher end stuff can happen through LCOG, which providing, having somebody commit to a service rather than us committing to having a person that we don't have redundancy for, that we may have contract instead of employee. That brings some consistency and I think there's, as the mayor mentioned earlier, regionalization. I've been on that soapbox around the region whenever anybody asks. They're probably tired of me saying the same things, that's the only real solution, is to get, regionalization, so you can take increments of a position. It's hard to put a 1.0 FTE in finance here to run the gamut of processing payables and invoices to doing fairly complex analytical debt service and all the things that we have embedded in a job description. It's hard to find a person with that full skill set, person that wants to do the full skill set, and that's willing to do it for middle to below middle average wage between those skills. So I think that's why it's been a turnover multiple times. So a lot to try and figure out. And then we also have to have, as regionalization always requires, is you have to have partners that are willing to be a regional partner with you. You can't be a regional partner by yourself. So we're working on that. So more to come. Communication, community engagement, that was just something for you all, just as a follow-up to last meeting's conversation about communication. I just repeated our framework objective item, just so you see what was in our approved framework. Biennial budget, Councilor Lehman asked about that last meeting, and I mentioned that I needed to double check myself, but the opportune time to switch wouldn't be this next, not the budget we just approved, and not the next one we'd do, but after that. It would have been a good time to do it 4 months ago, or 2 years from now. That matches up with the PERS rates that are issued. And that's typically when most cities, if they're going to transition over, they match that, because it has such a big impact on the staffing budgets and costs. So you tend to match those timeframes up. So if there's a desire, that means we have plenty of time to talk about it. At this coming retreat, we can make sure we chat about it. And if there's interest, I'll provide a little more kind of pro-con, little fact sheet or something that we can at least poke at, but we have time for that.
And we may also have some answers in terms of what our staffing looks like versus.
Yeah, I mean,
contracting.
it all kind of comes together. Yeah, all those things kind of relate. And then we can see if it meets our needs and our desires. The last item is just on the list with the monthly police report. What I thought was interesting to kind of piggyback on Chief Larson's, on the page 2, there were several resolutions to incidents and responses that were using the CHET fund that aren't necessarily related to homeless. So that CHET fund is very effective for some of the homeless services, but it's also for diffusing things and just solving. I think our team, our police team, really does a good job of kind of really that community policing, problem solving that is, doesn't even get a stat oftentimes. It's not a stat, it's just a solution. So I just saw that while Chief Larson was talking, thought I'd call that out.
And the source of the CHET funds?
Donations. Yeah. Yep. And that'll be a topic for a future quarterly report. So then it also says, and by the way, here's how you can donate. So and Chief does a great job of getting that out every season to fill those funds. Very effective too.
Anything else? Any questions? Liaison reports. Does the councilor member have?
I have a report from Parks. We did discuss Pavilion Park renaming, and the Park and Tree Committee had a recommendation to council to rename Pavilion Park Laura at Pavilion Park. That was the name that had been talked about. They felt like it still included Pavilion but also honored Laura Shepherd.
So it'd be Laura Park at the pavilion
Yep.
or?
Yeah, Laura
Right.
Park
Like
at
that.
Pavilion.
Yeah.
Yeah, and that
Okay.
was their recommendation. And then I looked at volunteer hours, and between March and June, the Parks Committee donated 40 hours to park cleanup.
So,
Who's Laura Shepherd?
Laura Shepherd is the daughter, and she died I don't know exactly how long ago, but she's Chuck and Tish Shepherd's daughter, grew up here in Coburg. Shepherds have umbrella properties, yeah. And we were able to move forward on Pavilion Park because when we did the land swap, the value of the park land was worth more than the value of the parking lot that we were doing the swap with. And so they donated the difference rather than the city paying them $30,000. So, and part of that agreement at that time was that they would have perhaps a naming opportunity for the park.
So just for process context on that came first to the Park and Tree, and then it'll come, we hope in September, along with the actual sign. That's gonna go next week to Park and Tree. The Shepherds and Umbrella is also donating the sign that has part of the renaming. So there'll be a series of things that'll come to council, because that's a recommendation, obviously, from Park and Tree. And formal renaming and finishing off some of those details will come in September to the council.
It's been a process.
And the Shepherds, their kids went to Coburg School with my kids and beyond. And they have always done a lot in the community. I mean, the Shepherd family at one time, when computers were first introduced to schools, bought an entire computer labs and helped to train staff members so that the kids at Coburg School would have an opportunity to have computer lab at least once. They've sort of always been pretty philanthropic.
Chuck's speech, I just saw the video because I wasn't there, but at the ribbon cutting was interesting, had some history that,
History, I didn't
history of the park. It was very, it seemed like it was pretty entertaining and good. Yeah.
He hasn't lost his edge, I'll say.
He has a lot of pride and he has done a lot. So
Yeah.
the family has done a lot, not just him, but very generous with his community. Patty, anything, or Council Engebretson, anything? for you?
Well, our committee, the Lane Act has decided for the time being to move toward fewer meetings. So instead of meeting every month, maybe every other month. So this tomorrow would be our normal meeting time, but we are not going to meet tomorrow. But the information I heard, I'm sure some of the rest of you have heard it through the news about the transportation and ODOT not receiving funding for their regular operations department because the legislatures left before approving the budget for that. That's interesting. So I'm pretty sure we'll be talking about that next time we meet.
ODOT is, I heard today, in August, we'll have laid off 10% of their normal staff.
And we'll try and, the small cities, League of Oregon Cities has the small cities thing that we're hosting. So part of that agenda is a legislative recap. So that would be great to hear kind of the rundown of all the stuff that happened or didn't happen at the legislature. And then as some of that stuff comes and finishes out, we'll have some stuff we can bring to council about not just around what happened in the legislature, but the items that have an impact on us or may have an impact on us. We'll kind of collect that and bring it forward, because there are, I have it on my
8th, I believe, of
August. Yes, there you go.
And it starts at 11.
11. Yeah, and lunch is, and you're all kind of
We'll make sure.
pre-registered or auto-registered.
Invitation goes out on that.
We'll, at the very least, we'll
Friday, always a Friday.
It is.
Yay.
wanna go, I need to know because I'll need to get you registered. You have a link that should be on your calendars that would out.
True, you did.
Yeah, that you can click on and register yourself through that link. There's a charge for it, but that link is food and the agenda. Related.
And it's always a very good meeting. Nice to hear what's happening in other small cities around the area, and it's nice to hear from League of Oregon Cities staff. Okay, I don't have anything, and MPC has been fairly quiet, so again, just sort of trying to figure out what's going to be happening with the budget issue for the state and transportation package not passing. I think everybody's just sort of holding their breath and see what comes next.
Planning Commission didn't meet.
Did not meet.
Did not meet.
Heritage Committee did not either.
Moment.
Well, I don't have a formal committee update, but before it slips my mind, because I'm gonna get killed if I don't do this, I have to take the opportunity to wish my grandmother a very happy birthday,
Well, we all join you in that.
as well as tomorrow marks my 1 year anniversary as a member of this body.
Well,
And it has been a privilege and an honor, and yes, there have been difficult decisions, but it is a 90% of the time, it's a joy to do. The other 10% of the time, it's a little rough. But that's what chocolate and carbohydrates are for.
well put. Well put. Thank you. Well, if nothing else,
Mayor, we did have one other item that's kind of
Sorry.
hidden in the agenda for our
Lost my spot.
August hiatus, actually requires council to vote, on that, to take that off.
yes, I see that now. I found my script again. So if council supports taking a recess August 1st, we do need to make a motion, as Adam just said, by charter, section 3.5 meetings, the council must meet at least once per month at a time and place designated by its rules, and may meet at other times in accordance with the rules and laws of the state. Council may take up to 2 recesses per calendar year when agreed upon by the majority vote of the city council. If this council supports taking a recess in August, I will entertain a motion.
I move that the city council takes a recess in August.
A second. We have a motion by Counselor Engelbretson and a second by Counselor Smith to take a recess in August as allowed by city charter. Is there any discussion or debate on that?
Why do we need a recess? We have a lot of work to do. We're adding extra meetings monthly.
Well, I think you need to address that to council.
It should be discussion.
Yep, yep.
I asked.
So.
I don't need a recess.
I think if there's something urgent that we would need to have a decision made by, but I think if not, a break is nice to regroup and start in September.
Just one meeting.
We are meeting on July 22nd, right? So we have 2 meetings last month, 2 meetings this month.
I also do not support a recess. We have a lot to do. Summer breaks are great, but adults don't get to do that. The legislature shouldn't do that. They shouldn't run before the business is done.
Well, I will point out that when we meet, it also adds burden to staff.
Yeah.
And And that we do need to acknowledge. There is a lot of, I know it doesn't seem like it, but for those of you that have put together packets and tried to round up all of the information, there is a lot of work that goes into that. So, we need to consider staff also. Any other thoughts? If not, I will entertain a motion. Oh, I already had the motion. I'm sorry. So at this point, I will call for a vote. All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
And all those opposed.
Yay.
We have 5 in favor and 1 opposed. So the council will recess in August, and our next city council meeting will be, well, we will have the second meeting this month, July 22nd, but the next scheduled meeting will not then occur until September 9th. Thank you. Anything else for the good of the order? If not, I will adjourn at this point, and I will adjourn this meeting at 8:39. Thank you all.